Hi, everybody.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much. We're going to just wait a few minutes and see. I think actually you all might be here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think we're good. Everybody's got background noise. Go. Well, welcome everyone. I thank you for joining me. My name is Leslie Orloff, and I run the National Immigrant Women's Advocacy Project here in American University. And I thought maybe we just go around the room because I know you guys are from all different kinds of places. Let me just start by telling you a little bit about NUAP. So the National Immigrant Women's Advocacy Project, we do national training and technical assistance around foreign-born immigrant survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, and the like. Hold on one second. Daniela? Hello? I'm in. Yeah, we're all good. I think, and do I have control? Let me just see if I share my screen. Yeah, looks like I have control. Okay, perfect. Thanks. Okay, bye. Sorry about that. My student started the Zoom and then disappeared and wanted to make sure she hadn't cut us all off. So anyway, I have been working on immigrant and refugee women's issues for, I think it's about 40 years now. I was involved in drafting the immigration provisions of the Violence Against Women Act, the VAWA, the T, the U, all of those at different times in my career, and also benefits access. And we have for years been kind of the agency that is helping provide direction to the field on public benefits access for immigrant crime victims and immigrant children for a long time. There's a place called the National Immigration Law Center that does it generally for immigrants and refugees, but we've specialized in the various different access for immigrant victims. And what happened was in, I think about 2017, roughly, we decided that we needed to create a series of state charts that had all the citations that had, because people were walking into benefits agencies, I don't know, in Nebraska with a NILC chart that had no citations and saying, I qualify for benefits, or their advocate was saying this person qualified for, and they wouldn't get anywhere. So I had law students for like 2 years create these giant charts, which is what this project is going to work from. So the legal research on the giant charts are done. But what became clear, and we have an online benefits map that you can look up by TANF. You can look up TANF and then in every state. But we didn't have, what happened is one of my former fellows became one of the leads on the State Department's team getting women's rights activists, women judges, women journalists, women artists out of Afghanistan. And once they were getting them on lily pads and on military bases, she called me because when she worked for me, she knew about this benefits work and said, do you have a tool that we can give the women or their advocates so that they know whatever state they land on, what they're legally eligible to receive? And so we decided that we needed to create a screening tool that could be used by any immigrant or refugee woman or man, anybody who speaks English, or could be translated ultimately into Pashto or Dari so that people could easily see what they're eligible for based on their immigration status in the state they landed. Because many of the families we're working with have multiple, mom and maybe dad and 3 kids might be eligible under mom's asylum case, but there might be older children or a nephew or a cousin or somebody else in the extended family that will need to navigate this, not only as somebody who currently has humanitarian parole, but their path to legal status might be special immigrant juvenile status or something else. So anyway, that's kind of who I am. I've gone a little bit in detail of the project, but I'm a professor, an adjunct professor at AU, and I run the program here. And so maybe we could just go around and get a sense of who you guys are, and then we can talk more in detail about the project. I'm so happy you've shown up to volunteer because we really need it. The other thing is I'm at AU, but we're like an NGO based at the law school. So we're totally federally funded. And when I started this, and our federal funding is all violence against women funding. So helping Afghan refugees theoretically doesn't fit, which is why we need volunteers to do this work. Now we're finding some states where the people in the states are seeing the intersection between violence against women and this population of refugees. But those are few and far between, and it doesn't squarely fit in my OVW grants, which is why, we need the volunteer assistance. That's kind of how we work. So I'm going to go around my screen in a circle, and maybe you guys could each tell a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what your interest in the project. So I'll start with you, Vipul.
Yep. Thank you, Professor. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vipul Mendiratha. I have been in the US for about a decade now. I have a law degree from India. Then I moved to US, and I recently completed my LLM at Loyola Chicago, and I passed the New York bar, so I'm waiting to get admitted.
Yay!
Yep, thank you. I'm currently employed at Caterpillar in Patents and Trademark Division. And I'm thinking, I was exposed, being an immigrant myself, I went through the process, and I was exposed to immigration law and asylum, during my law school. And I'm thinking of, changing my career from IP and everything. I mean, I have 16 years of IP experience, but I want to switch to immigration. So I believe, this kind of an opportunity will help me.
Wonderful. Great. Emily.
Sorry, hi, I'm Emmy Warney. I am a 1L at Western New England. I'm originally from New York, and I'm just really interested in immigration law in general, and I kind of want to get started and get involved as soon as I can, so I'm excited about this.
Great, wonderful, welcome. Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Nasser El-Bergawi. I'm a 1L at Western New England. I'm also interested in immigration work. I'd worked as a paralegal before, but I had never gotten any experience working in immigration. So as soon as I started law school, I have taken every opportunity I can to get involved.
Wonderful. And Marianne?
Hi, my name is Marianne McLean. I'm located in just north of Philadelphia. Lived in Chicago for a long time. Love Chicago. From New York originally, so I touch all of these things. I am actually a graduate of the Villanova Vista program. So I heard about the program through Michelle Pistone, who, Professor, I'm sure you've crossed paths along the way. So I am waiting currently for my credentials from the Department of Justice to be a fully accredited representative, which Vipul, maybe you want to talk about the Vista program with me offline, because that might be interesting to you if you're interested in immigration law. Anyways, I'm taking this very organic approach to helping out wherever I can. And I was interested in getting a little bit into kind of more of a research side of things. So this seemed like a good opportunity to try out some research. So as the non-lawyer on the call, here I am.
Great. So that's great. I love the mix. So what's really interesting, I mean, I find it fascinating. I mean, I always tell my husband that those mind games you need when you get old and you have to try to make everything juggle in your head to stay alive. I don't have those problems. Because when you look at the immigration law and benefits law, it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle. And so part of what we're trying to do is take kind of complex information and make it really accessible to people. And what's going to happen is I'll give you the link. We'll go online and I can show it to you. We have this public benefits map that we actually have a tech guy rebuilding for us now. And so we were going to pay to transfer all the data, and we realized we were better updating, creating these screening charts, and then having my undergrads load it up new, because since we started this whole project of trying to create tools around explaining public benefits access for immigrant crime victims and kids and DACAs and refugees and asylees and everybody, that we needed a more user-friendly way to do it. So what I'm going to do, I think it's just easier to do a little bit of show and tell. And these are going to be, so what we have is, let me show you, let me see how do I do this. Let me get the benefits map first. Is this going to pop up? Give me a second. Okay, so now I got to show you my screen. Okay, so this, are you there? Can you see the screen? Yeah. Okay, this could help, but it actually, the information contained in this, I'll show you how it works. So let's go to cash assistance. So you hit go to the map. You get a map of the United States. And you guys are all talking about Chicago, so let's go to Illinois. And you hit Illinois, and it tells you kind of by immigration status who's eligible. The problem is this is like too simple, because, for example, a VAWA self-petitioner, they're eligible when they get a prima facie determination. They're not eligible when they file. So we need to make this information clearer and more easily accessible. And we've developed a way of doing that in the template that we're going to have you use. So one way this will show up is on the equivalent of this benefits map, which I'm hoping somebody can go in someday and see a whole state. But so you can see, and then what happens is when you get, if you get on this benefits page, you click on the Illinois chart and you will get into our library and you'll get these very detailed lists that you guys are going to be working with. So these, can you see them? Do I need to blow it up bigger? So what we have is for every state and for every immigrant, all the different kinds of immigration status, this project is going to, number one, do a slight update of this chart to include a footnote that explains that Afghan refugees or immigrants, Afghanis with humanitarian parole get the same benefits as refugees. That's one thing. There was also, I don't know how many of you know about it, but we won a big victory from the Department of Homeland Security in June of 2021, which totally changes how quickly VAWA U visa applicants can access work authorization and protection from deportation. So we had to make an amendment for the prima facie, for the bona fide determinations in U's. And there are a couple of other things. So let me get off of this page for a second, come back to here, and I'm going to show you. And so what we're going to, so the project has two parts. One, we're going to update quickly, and this part isn't the hard part of this. It's update the these benefits charts for each of the states you're working on. And let me get a sample. Let me show you. So what I'm going to show you is to communicate what those updates should look like. We did share. Okay. We created a comparison chart. Let me make this bigger. So in red, you're going to literally copy the edits in red into a current version of into the big chart you're going to update. And when you do that, it will move footnotes. You'll make one edit down here at trying to, because when you say to lay people, somebody who's paroled into the UNS for more than a year, they don't understand what you're talking about. So changing that language to humanitarian parole, which is a word that's more recognizable, is one of the edits. And then you can see, so for each state, the way these charts are working, now they're too big for me to explain. So the way these charts are set up, and these are the master charts with, I'll show you what you're not doing. See all these footnotes? There's like pages and pages and pages. The goal here is when an advocate or attorney picks this up, they can go get the information they need and take it into the benefits agency with all the citations. That's the purpose of this. But for it, just to decide who's eligible for what, you don't need this. You need the screening tool to say before, because you don't want to dig in when somebody's not eligible. You don't want to waste your time. But the citations are all here. Let me go back up. So the way these charts are structured is things in, make it a little bigger, things in regular font are federal law. So let me step back. So under benefits law, federal and state public benefits laws, in 1996, they totally revised the laws, and there became like a kind of a federal standard that every state could offer a federal standard, but the states could elect to give more or take away for any different category of immigrant. So as a result, we have states that have given more, many, and we have two states that have taken it away. And they all do it in different ways. These charts, these big charts, track all that. And the way you can tell what the federal standard is versus what the state does is the federal standard is in regular text, and what's happening in the state is in italics. So you'll use, and then when we create the screening charts, we're blending them. We're summarizing and we're saying, because here, for example, in New Jersey, if you're, let's say you're a VAWA self-petitioner, then you get TANF under the Work First program in New Jersey if you're in a qualified abused immigrant. Once so you'll get TANF, whereas somebody who's, this one is limited. Sometimes these additions, they didn't give it to all immigrants, they just gave it to abused immigrants. Other places gave it to all qualified immigrants. And so, again, the law you don't have to look up, they're all on the chart. So you're going to be working from here. And then summarizing them. So the first step in the project will be just to make these changes that are in red in the charts. So your chart will be up to date. You'll put the name of the person who updated it, the date you updated it, pretty straightforward. Then once you've done that, you'll send me a track change version, which I'll just check, make sure you didn't miss anything. And you'll make a final version of this in a PDF that you'll then use for your source of law as you're making your decisions about how to fill out the screening chart. Any questions so far? Hopefully not too overwhelming for anybody.
Yeah, probably, when we do maybe for like one row or the other, we might have more questions while we're doing it. So,
Exactly.
so we can come back to you or?
Yeah. So what I was thinking is, because I also have a few law students here who are doing this, is maybe I'll do like rounds every week. We'll pick a time and everybody is working this, just come and ask questions. And I can, work my way through them. And that way everybody can see what, everybody gets the same information. So if you have a question, Vipul, maybe it'll help Marianne. And Marianne may have a question that helps Emily. It all, you know, because the states are all a little bit different, and that's what you're figuring out. So let me go back here. Hold on a second. So that's kind of on this benefits chart part. That's what we're going to be doing. And I have a set of instructions I'll show you that should walk you through this. And as you guys go through it, you might say, this isn't clear. And then I can update the instructions and send it back to everybody. Okay. Because there's literally, the states I'm assigning you guys, I've been told by the State Department, there are literally people on the ground now waiting for these. So that's how I'm deciding which states to assign first, is where there are Afghan women that are part of these women's rights activists that the State Department brought over, where they're landing is where I'm kind of going first. And then I had a conversation with Catholic Charities about where they're seeing the largest numbers of refugees. So they've added a few more states. And that's how we kind of came up with a mix of states. Ultimately, we want to do this for the whole country because there are people landing everywhere. And more importantly, as you can see by the forms of immigration relief we're covering, VAWA, TEAS, USE, DACA, you know, they're going to be extremely helpful to the domestic violence and sexual assault communities that are working with immigrant survivors and immigrant kids all over the country. Our motivation for doing it now and the order we're doing it has to do with the Afghan refugees, but the goal is to have this for everybody, ultimately.
I think I have a question, which is, and forgive me if it's too simplistic, this chart covers all immigrants and benefit seekers, no matter where they come from.
Correct. Country of origin doesn't matter. The only weird tweak on that has to do with the Afghan law that was passed in December, where the only people with humanitarian parole who get treated as refugees for benefits purposes are Afghans.
Okay, so in column 2 here, which references refugees, asylees, and T visas, is there something, is it going to be kind of itemized out for the Afghan population?
What we're doing is on both this chart. So if I hit, let's see if I can do this, footnote 2, come on, will it jump, or it's not going to jump? Oh, I'm on the wrong one. So if I go to this footnote 2, see if I can make this work. It says, I don't know if you can see it.
I can, yeah, I see where you're talking. Okay.
It says, it has the law and it says this applies to them. Okay. That same footnote is like the screening chart has almost no endnotes, but that's one of the endnotes on the screening chart. So when somebody picks this up, they'll be easily able to see that that asylum column applies to Afghan refugees.
Okay, thank you. Very helpful.
No problem. Okay, let's go back. So let me go and show you what the screening chart now looks like. I think it's this one. Oh, hold on. This thing dropped down and got in my way, so now I can't. How do I do this? This Zoom bar got in the way and I couldn't make it bigger. Okay, let me make it bigger. Is that a Zoom bar in your way, or you don't see it, right? That part you don't see. Okay, so so what I did last semester when this all started is I had 2 AU law students who helped me come up with the template. And that's Chris. You'll see his name over everything. So on this, what I'm literally going to do is give you this New Jersey screening chart. And this is your template. And you're going to you're going to save it and then save as and make it whatever state I'm assigning you and just write over it. Don't do it in track changes because it'll be too complex because New Jersey law isn't going to be the same as where you, but it shows you an example of how to write this. So one of the things you're going to want to do up front is you're going to obviously send them to the full chart for the state you're working on, not for New Jersey. One other thing, when we do all of the links in the materials, you'll see we're doing, like all of the links in this document need to be to the landing pages of our website, not the PDF. The reason for that is if you're in our website and you're on a PDF, you're lost, you're stuck. You can't hit back and get out of it. You're just on the PDF. Whereas if you hit the landing page, you can navigate away and go look at another state or go look up something else. So that's why we do the landing pages. So let me show you what these screening charts look like. So this is, I want to make it big enough so you can see it. So this is what you're going to be filling out. So the top part, so from New Jersey, the reason you're not going to change the format at all, because this column, this top line and this side line are already formatted. All you're going to do is basically change all these boxes. Either keep the language because it's the same, or change it to what is happening in your state. And the thing that we want to be clear about, so see VAWA self-petitioner, what we wrote was eligible with prima facie determination, which is the point at which the eligibility starts. Mm-hmm. And then it'll say if they're just eligible, and here it's in New Jersey due to abuse, because it's the state that's providing the eligibility, not the feds. But for refugees, they're just eligible. And they're just eligible because under federal law, they're eligible. And so what we want to do, whereas like in the old chart, we would say eligible with conditions, but those conditions didn't make any sense. I mean, it was like too much. We were not giving people enough information. So what we decided to do is there's like a, how would you put it? Not the first condition. I don't want to confuse you. There's a point in a case where you become eligible. That point in a case isn't a condition. That's like the starting point. And so it would be prima facie determination in most of the VAWAs. It would be eligible upon receiving lawful permanent residency for a special immigrant juvenile status or a U visa victim. And then there may be conditions based on the particular program or the state. So if everybody who's a lawful permanent resident has access to TANF in the state you're working on without a 5-year bar, then it's just eligible upon receipt of lawful permanent residency. If there's a 5-year bar, then it's eligible with conditions upon receipt of 5-year. You'll use this language. So here, and in New Jersey, it just so happens that there is no 5-year bar. But the normal one will be written like this part. And the text of the big chart will tell you what the answer is for each square. And then the idea is to follow the format and write it in this format. Am I making sense?
And you said this should be in the track changes mode so that you can review it.
No. The other one in track changes. The big chart, the changes you make in track changes, so I should review. This chart, don't just write. When I review it, it's this one because each state is different.
Okay.
It's better for you to make a judgment on the state, and then I'll open up the big map. I'll open up the big chart and review it by just checking each one.
I see. Okay.
It's easier for me than comparing it to New Jersey.
Can you go back to the big chart if you have on screen so that I
Sure, absolutely. Hold on. I have everything up, and I just looked at it. This is the comparison chart. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So what you're going to do is you're going to take whatever state I assign you and copy over the track, make the edits to that chart that are made in this chart, and you'll do that in track changes.
Understood.
Because you're editing a bigger thing instead of creating something more or less from scratch.
Got it.
So the information in this big chart, the one we're looking at right now, is the correct information? Or I'm sorry, I really.
It is the correct information. So what's happening is the changes that were made universally to this chart, made on the New Jersey chart, many of them are universal changes that will affect every state. So the only exception to that is, so let's say, arguably, so see how New Jersey is in, like TANF is in italics here? So if you're working on another state, Illinois, California, I have a list here, hold on. if you're working on another state that does something for immigrants about TANF, then in this chart, there may be a couple of edits in the italic section. So for example, TANF, California, Maine, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Washington. But if you're working on like DC or New Mexico or Oklahoma, where there is no TANF for anybody, then this part will just be, it's irrelevant. You won't copy over the edits to this because they don't matter for your state. Does that make sense? I used New Jersey as an example, so if you have changes in the state portion, you knew what we needed to do.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be super clear. I don't have any problem how many times I say it.
But how,
Professor, sorry to interrupt. Professor, I have a couple of other questions that I want to talk to you offline. Is there a good time, because I have another meeting starting now?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can send me an email and we'll figure out a time for sure. Let me just say before we go, since you're jumping off, and then I can stay on for the rest of you. So you're going to essentially make, oops, wrong one. You're going to make this chart is the goal. This is the screening chart. And as you'll see, there's very few, there's a few endnotes at the end, mostly that Afghan point that we made earlier.
Understood.
And so what my goal is I'd like to assign each of you, I'd like to assign you 2 states and tell you which one I'd like you to do first. I'm going to give you the easier one first. All of you have one state that's a little bit is easier and one state that's a little bit harder. I'll send you an email with all these sample things to work from and the instructions, which look like, just so you know before you go off a pool, instructions look like this. So we go through and it basically talks about using the template, what changes you make to the main document, and it's like 3 pages. It walks you through.
I think this was attached in the original email too, right? Is this the same document? Okay.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, the other 2 the Word versions you're going to be working through are slightly updated from what I originally sent. But that's generally the tools. And then what I can do is I can set up like rounds, and you can all call me on my cell phone. I'll give you my number and just call me. And if I can take the message at the time, I'll be happy to answer the question quickly. If we need to do something more, but I also think, do you guys think it's a good idea if we set up like a once a week meeting or something with anybody who's working on the project so people can ask questions and learn from each other? Sounds good?
Yep.
Okay. So are you guys all okay? I'll assign you 2 states and you'll do one first and then the other, and then we'll, just keep me appraised of your timing, and I will edit them and get them back to you as soon as possible. And then we'll just upload them. They become live on our website as we do them. So
thank you, Professor. I'll call you back in 1 hour if you have time today.
So I think that may work. Hold on. Let me just tell you, I don't know. I don't have total control all days of my calendar. Let me see what it says. It looks like I would need to, after 3 o'clock Eastern.
Okay, I'll call you then. Yep, I just need about 15 minutes of your time. Thank you.
No problem. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. So Marianne, you had another question, right?
I did. I'm confused about when we would be making changes that required tracking changes in the main document. I'm just not sure when we would make changes to that particular document.
So when I say the main document, I'm thinking of the big long 40-pager. That's with all the footnotes.
Yes.
That's the document you'll do track changes. So you're going to be assigned a state, and you guys you'll get to choose what states. I'll give up all the other ones, and we'll figure. I have some sets of states worked out. So you'll open up the state chart that I'll email you, the Word version of the current one on our web. And then you're going to update it using the New Jersey template, the New Jersey comparison document, and then send it to me. I'll probably within 24 hours review it and say it's fine. And you can go ahead and start once you do the update on the big chart, you can start making your screening chart. And that's where you won't do it in track changes. Does that make sense? So
I
screening
can't wait
chart,
to do the first one. I need to do one. And once I
course,
do
and
one,
then
then
it'll-
I'll understand.
exactly. So so what happens is the screening, let me just open up. They look different too, so that'll make it easier. So the screening chart is the one that looks like this. This is the one where all these white boxes you're essentially going to rewrite
Right.
to reflect your state. Some of them, like I can give you an example, this eligibility WIC, I can tell you right now, ain't changing. It's all the same in every state. So you'll just skip that one. There's nothing to change. But you're going to go through and kind of work through TANF for the state and write the TANF line. And then you'll work through childcare for the state and write that line. Using
Based on the information that's in the other chart.
Exactly. So you're going to use the information in the big chart, in the 40 pager, to essentially answer the questions in each box here, is the way to think about it. And then I'll review, and, we can either, I'll call, if you guys share your cells with me, we'll work out, I'll call you up and we'll go over it. So it doesn't mean you'll all be meeting as a group each time, but I can give you feedback individually, because everybody approaches this. I've done this with enough people. Everybody has new insights. It's like, I thought that was clear, but then somebody asked a question, so I clarify for everyone. That's kind of how it works. But I mean, they're going to be super useful for the field, and I can clean them up if I need to, but I think once you do one or two, they're going to become similar, because some states are similar to the other states. And I'm saving you guys from the two worst. I think I'm going to try to do them myself. The two worst are the states that offer the most. And it's like
New York and California.
It's not New York, actually. It's California and where did it go? Washington. It turns out in the way this has to change, because they all have change, basically they offer state-funded TANF, healthcare, driver's license, and food. And nobody does that much. There's some states that you'll do that it's basically the federal plus prenatal care. Most states will be federal plus some kind of either prenatal care, child care, or maternal or healthcare for pregnant women. That's where most states land. There's a bunch of them add driver's licenses. Some of them in this group add TANF to some immigrants and not all. And that's how it kind of plays out. The other stuff should remain fairly similar. There's no difference in housing. There's no difference in earned income tax credits. There's no difference in FEMA. So the one other thing I would like to ask you to try, and it's not in the model, is whether the idea would be that if you can go to the website for the state, like if you were an applicant and you were going to apply for TANF in that state, it would be phenomenal. You see my screen, right? To turn these titles on the left into links that would go to where somebody would apply. So that's the one extra thing I'd like you guys to do that the template doesn't have. And if it'd be really interesting to report back and say, maybe it took me an hour and a half to do the chart, but it took me like 5 hours to find the links. Let me know that. And if we can make that, I could always send a bunch of undergrads at some point through, finding all the links to those things. And some of them might be in the big charts already. But it would be lovely to be able to make those that user friendly. But you guys could experiment and tell me whether it's possible, whether it adds a whole extra burden. Because I do want to get the information out to people more, first, and then maybe we have to go back at the end and add the links. But we'll see. Questions, Emily, Sarah? Marianne, more questions?
No, I think once I do it, I'll get it.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Emily.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, that's my experience, is that as you start, questions come up as you do them, and just shoot me an email. But no, I'm kind of one of those old school kind of folks. So phone is actually better. You can text me, or if you send me an email, text me, because I regularly get buried in emails. And Marianne, I think you got all these different communications because I didn't know if they got to you or not. Because most of my email, my staff are plowing through my email all the time, trying to make sure I'm responding to people. So sometimes I see it and then respond again. But yeah, well, I really appreciate this, and it'll be, you know, the number of people in the country that understand, like, know how to look up benefits stuff and immigration at the same time is a very needed skill that not a lot of people have. They usually know one or the other. So this is also for where you guys are all in your careers, could be a really useful thing to know about. And it certainly will for you, Sarah and Emily, give you some familiarity of the kind of all these different types of immigration relief and how they differ from each other, not only in terms of immigration, but in terms of the, you know, people get much more if you pursue one as opposed to another, which is an important thing to know if you're working with clients someday, which half the world doesn't know, which is why we do this. So, yeah, well, thank you. I'm going to put together this afternoon. Oh, yes, states. So here are the combinations, and you guys can decide. So Illinois and Oklahoma for one person, Maine and New York, New Mexico and DC, Oregon and Kentucky. Anybody care strongly about any of those? So I'll go down. Marianne, what do you want to pick?
How about, gee, I don't want to take Illinois from Vipul since he lives there, I think.
Okay, I could give him Illinois, okay.
Just give me the second one on the list, honestly. Professor, I don't mind.
Maine and New York?
Maine and New York, that's fine.
Okay, so this is Marianne. Who wants DC and New Mexico or Oregon and Kentucky? Anybody?
It doesn't matter to me.
I'll just go down my screen. So Sarah will get DC and New Mexico, and Emily, you'll get Oregon and New York, Oregon and Kentucky. So just so you know, I'll let you know, the easier, so Marianne, you're the one that I'm not sure which is easier. I think Maine is going to be easier than New York.
Let's start with that one.
Yeah, and I know New Mexico is easier than DC. I know Kentucky is easier than Oregon, and I know Oklahoma is easier than Illinois. So that's how I'll assign them. And I'll get them all out with an email and the map and the documents to work with this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you.
it.
I'm nervous, but excited.
Yeah, I'm sure you can all handle it. I'm really, and actually, Marianne, I'm particularly excited for you as an BIA accredited rep, as opposed to a lawyer or a law student, see how it goes, because if you're successful at doing it, I could recruit more people who are non-law. So it'll be great.
Well, I'm not accredited yet, but let's say I've got the training.
Well, right, I understand. But the point is you have to, the hardest part about this sometimes is getting your head around the different immigration statuses, which you had to already do as part of the accreditation.
Right, right.
So, and for Sarah and Emily, that sounds like exactly one of the things you want to do. So this is a good way to start doing it. So, and there are no silly questions. Don't worry about me. I mean, I have been teaching this to people for 40 years on different levels and creating a lot of this law. So it's, for me, this is, you know, we can write it down on paper, but if people can't access it or think they don't qualify, that does us no good. So great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Sarah and Emily.
Bye-bye. I'll be back in touch by email tonight. Bye.
Very good. Thank you.
Uh-huh.